You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Are we experiencing reality as it is, or are we the architects of a world shaped by perception, belief, and frequency? Join me today as we challenge our reality. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer. What if everything we've been told about holistic health, healing, and well-being is only part of the story? Because thriving in today's world looks different than it used to. Here, we challenge the narratives, rethink what it means to become human, and explore how that shapes the way we lead, live, and step into our full potential. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Reality can feel like the one thing we do not need to question because it is right in front of us. Yet perception, belief, and frequency can change the picture enough to make us wonder what we have been calling real without looking too closely. Melissa Tittl is a leading voice in consciousness media, an investigative journalist, award-winning filmmaker, and the creative force behind some of the most talked about programming in science, spirituality, and human potential. Across a career spanning Hollywood and the world's biggest networks, she has created and written shows for Netflix, History, and Discovery, including Ancient Aliens and The Universe, and hosted and led investigations on UFO Witness for Discovery. As former head of content for Gaia, the world's leading platform for conscious media, she shaped a generation of programming on spirituality, the mind, and human potential, creating flagship series such as Ancient Civilizations. That vision made her a natural fit for Dr. Joe Dispenza. With Hathor Studios, she produced and directed Source, It's Within You, the documentary built around the largest meditation study ever conducted. Her career began in Hollywood at Paramount Studios, working on franchise films including Star Trek and Mission Impossible. Her award-winning film, Code 12, uncovers a hidden mathematical code linking ancient megalithic structures, sacred texts, and quantum physics, a discovery that supports the simulation hypothesis. Now, with Illusion, she turns her investigation to the nature of reality itself, exploring belief, frequency, and the hidden structures that shape everything we perceive. Let's meet Melissa Tittl. Hi, Melissa. It's sort of great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because we all know there's an amazing project coming up, and that is the movie Illusion. And I'm excited that you're here today to share a little bit more about that, about the background and what went into that, about you and your philosophies and what you're working on. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I really appreciate you taking the time to unravel this mystery with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I was sharing a little bit before on how much I enjoyed your other movies. So I'm so glad that we actually get to explore this in a little bit more depth and talk about maybe also what goes in behind the scenes when these movies get made that is important for our viewers to maybe get a little bit of insight on the storylines and the things that you put together. Maybe share a little bit about yourself to start with and your journey and story and the pieces of it that you feel kind of relate to what you do today. And for those listeners who might not know you yet, let them know what it is that you do today so we can give you a little bit of an introduction.
Oh, thank you. So I've been producing TV and film for, 25 years. I started out in Hollywood. I worked for Paramount Studios. That was kind of my in for a while, which was great, learning about the business. And I worked for the president at the time. I was early 20s, so I was his assistant. I learned everything about the business. And then that offered me the chance to work on movies like Star Trek and Mission Impossible and some of these like blockbuster hits, like really understanding the business from that side. But my love had always been, I was such a nerd ever since I was a kid. I just love documentaries. And I transitioned, which never happens, which you're not supposed to do, quote unquote, in Hollywood. When you start in film, you stick in film. If you start in TV, you stay in TV because they're all pigeonholes. If you're in documentaries or docuseries TV, you stay there. Like you don't transition, but I did. So from film to docuseries, I got a job working for History Channel. And one of my first shows that I produced is called The Universe. So I'm dating myself a little bit, but this was America's first attempt to create a really smart show about space with lots of people from NASA. I think that show's still on Netflix. Netflix bought the rights to that show. And from there, I did a bunch of nerdy space stuff. And shortly after, I'd say about 2 years after doing all this nerdy stuff with Discovery Channel and History Channel, I got a call from the creators of Ancient Aliens. And this is like a pilot episode that they had sold to History Channel. History Channel is very nervous about the show called Ancient Aliens. If any of you know what the show is that is listening, it's in like its 20th season now or something like that. So they said, we really want you to come on and produce because you know a lot about space. And I'm thinking like, okay, yeah, but from a science perspective, not necessarily an alien perspective. Now let's back up a little bit. My interests in the unknown have always been there. So Ancient Aliens did not start my interest in things like aliens or ancient civilizations. I had been researching that stuff and talking about that stuff with my dad for like, I don't know, since I was a little girl. So this wasn't new for me. So I took that job to produce Ancient Aliens. History Channel was so nervous about that show, they only greenlit 3 episodes. But when they aired those 3 episodes, it was a blockbuster. So they immediately ordered 13 more. I was there at the inception of Ancient Aliens. I stayed for about 5 seasons until I could not write another episode about the Great Pyramid being a power plant. I was like, I have to move on. From there, I did a bunch of supernatural shows, ghost shows, which I don't necessarily like doing. I did a docuseries for Netflix. It was Chelsea Handler's first attempt to leave the desk because she was always doing a talk show, to go out into America and really investigate things like drugs and what does it mean to be in America, you know, all this stuff. So, and the reason I got brought in to do that show is I'm really good at getting us into difficult places. And we can talk about that later. I could talk about that show. I'm just trying to go through my resume. After that, I was really kind of dedicated to wanting to contribute to humanity. And I felt like, although the shows that are on my resume and the places I've been able to go are really great in Hollywood, I still wanted to be part of, okay, well, how do we change the conversation with humanity? And that is where I got approached by Gaia, who had just kind of started. This is 2016. And they said, we really need a head of content. Would you be interested? So I left LA and took the position of head of content for 5.5 years. I produced and created shows like Ancient Civilizations. It's where Dr. Joe and I became friends. We did a show called Rewired. I created another show called Deep Space. I was really good at writing these docuseries. So Gaia didn't really have anything like that. They just had people talking about aliens. So I was there for 5.5 years. And now to get to where we're at now for this interview, I kind of got disenchanted with the spiritual community because although I have a lot of really great friends at Gaia, I still think there is a control mechanism, the information coming out, and I wanted to still be able to kind of express new ideas in the field and not have to be beholden to a structure that somebody else created for Wall Street. I left, created Hathor Studios, woman-run production company, which is very rare. In fact, there's nobody in this space, a woman running a production company, doing this kind of stuff. So I just want to say it's the hardest thing ever. But we started this interview talking about our new movie, Illusion. That's our 3rd movie. So as an independent production company doing everything by ourselves, I feel like that's a really big feat. We started off with Code 12, which was kind of an invitation into my personal research. I then did Dr. Joe Dispenza's movie, Source. And now, Illusion. All right, that's it in a nutshell.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing this. And as you said, what a feat to have just a woman-led production company. And I know that in Code 12, I mean, you did a lot of the traveling around and interviewing and exploring and researching where you were on camera doing all of these things. So a lot of investment, of course, of your own time and putting all of this together. So I can only begin to guess at how much it takes to bring these projects together. And at the same time, I understand the interest in wanting to have your own creative license and then putting together what you believe in and what you want to share with the world. So I think that came together beautifully in Code 12 and watched Source, of course, as well, where that I really loved that movie as well. And that makes me very curious about Illusion coming up. I actually can't wait to see it. And you're bringing together a lot of different perspectives and ideas in these movies. So what is it actually that Illusion is about? What are you trying to share with viewers, or what is the central thing that came to you that you said, I have to make a movie about this. I have to bring this to the people. So what are you sharing in Illusion?
So like I said, I've been in this for 25 years, asking all the questions, gone down most of the rabbit holes. And I think for me, there always comes a point in everybody's exploration of who they are and what they're doing here and what is God and what should we call it and all of that. And at some point, we all just kind of stop and we just accept this as far as we're going. And it could be, I went to church or I went to the synagogue and that's it. That's all I want to go. This is as far as I want to understand. It could be a 10-year journey and you get to Tibet and you're like, I met the most amazing Tibetan teacher. That's as far as I'm going. Everything he or she says is it. And that's as far as I go. But for me, that's not enough. I don't want to stop asking, why are we here? Because even when you get to that point where you're like, this was the most profound experience I've had, and I believe everything that has happened, that person isn't wrong, but there still is, but why does that exist, right? What I mean by that is, okay, so you met somebody that has the most beautiful explanation of how the universe works and why you're in it and what you're doing and all of that. And it makes you feel so good. And you feel really confident and grounded in this explanation. But why does that concept exist at all? Why does that exist? And that's where I go even further. And what happened was it took me all the way to the very beginning, the very starting of the universe itself, because that's as far as I can get, because nobody really knows who pressed the button, whether it was a supernatural character or it just was a phenomenon that happened in space, whatever, nobody really knows. If we could figure out who started the button and who started the Big Bang, I think we'd have all of the answers, all the questions answered. However, I can't find anybody to talk to me about that. That's just all speculation. I took it all the way back to the very beginning of the universe itself. And I interviewed huge quantum physicists, people from Harvard, different scientists all over the world. We actually have a French physicist who I went to the south of France to interview, who's written many books. And actually, he's got two big discoveries. One was back in 1978, where he predicted exactly where the black hole would be, that the James Webb Telescope discovered in 2023. And he actually calculated exactly how it would look and how they were going to find it. And they did in 2023. And they brought him in. They're like, oh my God, you were right, back in 1978. And he also predicted a phenomenon that I'm going to talk about in this documentary that has to do with our consciousness in 2003 based on NASA data. So these are the kind of people I interview. And then we get to a little bit more philosophical researchers, archaeologists in ancient civilizations, because a lot of these patterns, if you will, in space are then represented in ancient structures and understanding. And why would that be unless there was something to connect to it? So a lot of us end with a spiritual belief, but I'm saying that that spiritual belief has an origin, and it's far more complicated and beautiful than you can ever imagine. And it still means that whatever you believe is still amazing and real. And the title of the film is Illusion, but the illusion is the idea that there is nothing else besides this one physical thing. And we really dive into What does all of this mean? What do you mean? Like, what could your purpose be outside of the story that you have created, whether you've gone really deep into the rabbit hole or you're just starting? It doesn't matter. There's a really important thing that we are here to do as humans. And we bypass that with story because we cannot see it because we're stuck in an illusion of a concept.
Wow. I love that. It's fascinating. And, you're talking about bringing together all of these people from different backgrounds, different work, different cultures, different perspectives that they all have, scientists, researchers, philosophers, all different kinds of people in this movie. Is there something that you found as you were interviewing and putting this material together? Is there something that you found that still connects us all together? I want to say as human beings, or connects the people together that you brought in for this movie. Did anything come up as you were putting this together and kind of thinking, okay, what is the common thread here when we're talking about illusion and where all of these people are coming from in these different perspectives? So anything that came up for you?
I mean, a lot came up for me. I just want to back up a little bit because, look, we're all people expressing our individual idea of what we think the universe is. And I'm just one of you on this, listening to this podcast. Every person I interviewed kind of dropped a bombshell for me of like another piece of the puzzle. And my job is to always see the pieces of the puzzle of how they fit together. That's literally, it's funny. My husband is like, what are you doing? I'll just sit in my office for hours and stare at the wall because in my head, I'm putting them all together before I start writing or looking at things. It looks like I'm doing nothing, but I'm doing a lot. This movie was supposed to be done in December, and I finished it several weeks ago. The reason for that is a personal one. It's because what I was discovering and putting out there as a kind of a twist on a lot of the stuff we've heard before and a kind of a different way to look at all of these concepts, I had to actually embody it. And I kind of didn't know what was happening. I'm like, why is this taking so long? And why is it not coming together the way I want to? But it was weird. It was like, well, you're the conduit, filmmaker Melissa, and you are not aligned with the words and the images. And it took me a while to understand that. So on a personal journey, yes, everybody had like really interesting things to say, but it was up to me to align to that principle, even if it was just energetically, and not just put it out there and be like, hey, this is really cool. You should see it. I really had to personally do what I was saying in this documentary. And it's hard to explain because nobody has seen it yet, but there is an element of visualization of our reality that I was suggesting. And it came to a point where I just had to try it myself because I'm like, okay, well, I can't write this stuff unless I try it myself. So I went to a grocery store and I tried these visualizations and I really could see how it was working. And I was like, okay, all right, I'm on the right path. I am becoming the words and the visuals on the screen. So yes, there are some turning points in this documentary, but honestly, it was me, the filmmaker, that made the turning point. It was me that had to realize something about my reality instead of just reporting on it. And that's kind of never happened to me before. Yes, I embody things and I say, hey, look at this. But that was very difficult to do. But once I did, and maybe this is the point of the film, maybe the information is really fantastic for people to watch, but maybe on an energetic level, it is really what we're supposed to be doing, is that sometimes a lot of us just believe in stuff and tell people about it and post about it and write about it. And so-and-so says this, and this is how you change the world, but none of us are really embodying it. So maybe on an energetic level, that is what the movie is supposed to represent, is that we must embody that of which we tell people is the way to look at the world.
I love that. And also for me goes to that embodiment is really how we bring that energy out into the world. If we're not really aligned with what we're presenting or even believing in and putting out in the world, there's kind of a dissonance that happens. And I feel then we can't authentically share that. So I can definitely see how you were learning to embody these things and actually feeling a difference as that was happening. I find it interesting that after all of this time, decades in the movie industry where you've pretty much seen it all and you've written it all and talked about it all, that there are still things that challenge you on some level. Goes to show just how much vastness is out there to discover and explore, right? And new things come up as you're creating these projects. So to me, this really just points to how much we haven't discovered yet, how much we haven't talked about yet. So, I mean, the good thing is that it'll probably give you movie material for decades to come. But it's great to see that you're still finding that there are things that challenge you, make you curious, and make you want to dive in and embody these things. So I find that's fascinating to hear.
Amazing. Yeah, no, you should never stop asking questions. I had this old boss who said to me, "You're quite arrogant." And I thought that was really funny because the reason he said that is because I kept asking more questions. And I thought, well, I think the point of being arrogant is that you stop asking questions. And I'm not stopping the questioning. Again, it's just people don't want to keep asking questions. They just want to live their life sometimes. And it's not my path. So I get tortured by the idea of asking more questions. But it's okay. I also think it's okay to just enjoy where you are at with your spiritual journey and your understanding of whatever rabbit hole you're in, and really taking a pause to take it all in as if it's reality. But just know that it never ends. There is no ending to asking the questions of who we are and what we are doing here. And I think the bigger and the more vast we understand this complex world, maybe we never get to the bottom of it, but the more that we've broadened our horizons, the more we're going to be able to do that thing that everybody thinks is going to happen, which is change the course of humanity. Now, I have a problem with this because everybody has an idea of how we're going to change the course of humanity. We're going to go in, we're going to change it through laws and policy, or we're going to change it through energetic means, or we're going to be the conduit in our neighborhood and be the good vibes. All of that is true, but the fastest way to change the concept of living together in a coexistence that could be better is relative, but better than what maybe we have now, is to just change consciousness. Just like that, where everybody realizes something really big and everybody just steps back from all the resistance. And it's in pieces. Now, let me give you some ideas, some concepts of that. There are these points in history where humans just change overnight. Think about the Renaissance period. We went from like dark ages to everybody was painting and writing beautiful music and expressing themselves and having these lavish parties of expression, like you could say, a historian listening to this could say, well, it wasn't just overnight, it was this and then it was that. But where did that come from? It just kind of dropped itself into the pool of human consciousness and it became a thing. There's like the turn of the century also, there was kind of before the 20s, there was this moment where people were researching Egypt and having seances and getting into the supernatural world. Before that, it was cold. Nobody was doing that. And then all of a sudden, everyone was interested in this other thing besides just church, right? Then you have the 60s. You have this moment where, I'm speaking from an American standpoint here, but this is across the world. You have this moment in the late 60s where, yes, America is engaging in the Vietnam War. But all over the world, people are just asking, what is happening? Why are we at war? And why do we have these policies? And why can't it be different? It was just like something dropped a little juice into our consciousness and everybody just started asking questions. Now, let's go to today. We're in this information, technological, social media, like information overload. We've got all the information at our fingertips. We're at a point now where we don't know what's real or not. And it's not a war on consciousness. It's a war on what's authentic. So now we're at this point where we have all the information and we're wide open to make the decision. Okay, well then what is our agreed upon reality? This is the collective consciousness. I like to look at it like common sense. Common sense is 51% of the population believes X. 49% believe this. Too bad, not common sense. Common sense is 51%. This is how we decide as a collective reality. All right, you went to a retreat, your mind got blown, you did some ayahuasca mushrooms, maybe you just did a really deep meditation retreat, your mind's blown, you saw all these things, you saw beings, you went there, you saw your demons, you defeated them, you're on a new plane, but you go back home and everybody's at a different vibration, and eventually you're going to go back there. So the way to turn the world into understanding a different reality is changing it to that 51%. And that is how we create a bigger understanding of our existence. If 51% of us believe that there are other supernatural beings living alongside of us right now, then it's common sense. It's no longer the unknown. It's no longer a mystery. It's just part of our existence. If 51% of us believe that we should all do X, Y, Z together, then that becomes our reality. So our reality and the illusion is we don't have any other opportunities and we're held behind a veil. But the reality is we are in complete control and we can change that. And things that I present in this documentary, I don't want to give too much away, but I really show how everything that is in this 3D reality is something else. And that doesn't mean it's not real. It just means that then easily it could change into something else. And I hope that through this understanding that these things that are so difficult for us to coexist together will start to become easier. Because I'm not here to solve all the problems of us coexisting together, but I'm here to maybe collectively change the patterning so that it could be a different world. Not that it could be, because better is relative, but we could change it. And it's a lot easier than you think.
That makes me very intrigued to watch the movie. So do you believe then in some sense that we are at a point again in history where a certain impetus could really change the world? Consciousness could put us into, I want to almost say, a different reality. Whether it's better or worse, it would be different from the reality that we're living today. But is that part of what you are trying to, I want to say, impart through your movie is that we really are at this point again?
Yes, we're definitely at that point. And here's the thing, a lot of people will say, yeah, I feel that. And definitely things are changing and people are waking up, quote unquote. But there's not a goal. There's no direction. There's just a lot of people absorbing information and barking. And I call it, it's just like this barfing up on social media of all this stuff. And it's exciting because there's lots of people interested in lots of weird things now, which is great. But there's no agreed upon reality yet. And my fear is we're at this really open point, this really like insecure, but open, childlike curiosity. What could it be type of moment? And somebody or something, most likely because we're living in a 3D reality, somebody will just kind of direct our consciousness in a direction that maybe we never agreed on going. But because we're not collectively deciding what's real, we are collectively being picked up by the propaganda and swayed this side or that side. It doesn't matter what country you're in. This is happening everywhere. And people can feel it, but there's no human directive of like, okay, well, this is what we want to be real. This is how we would like to direct the conversation. And, you know, I get a lot of people, especially in this alternative thinking space, that are like Hollywood. They're like, yeah, well, Hollywood is trying to brainwash us. And I'm like, yeah, but isn't your government trying to brainwash you? I mean, I'm speaking because I'm an American, but the White House and Hollywood are the same thing. Like they're really good at advertising and marketing, and they're really good at everybody playing the right part. And this is real in any country. This is what it is. So in a way, Hollywood is just a mirror of what you're willing to accept as your reality. The new Spielberg movie came out, Disclosure Day. People are like, well, that's really interesting that the government released all these files right when the Spielberg movie came out. Well, it's not really that interesting. Of course it is, because Hollywood is mirroring the fact that people are ready to have a conversation about this unknown piece. Like, we're ready. And the government knows we're ready. So they're like, okay, here you go. Here's some files, right? This is how much power we have. We, as a collective, set the tone for what it is we see. Hollywood is just literally giving you a mirror. So if you're watching Housewives of some god awful city and you're like, God, they're always putting this kind of shows out there. And I'm like, well, apparently that is a mirror for certain parts of society.
Oh, this is really interesting. Yeah, there's so many of those shows. I always wonder who watches that and what they take away from that. So, yeah, a lot of what you're sharing, I feel, is around perception, right? How we perceive as humans, how we perceive our reality, how we even perceive ourselves and our beliefs, what we assume about the world out there. And of course, a lot of that comes from what we're handed from our families, prior generations, the people around us. As you said, we can go to a retreat and really up level, then we come back into the same frequency, and day to day, we'll just go back to being day to day. This perception about our lives really is something that I think has been conditioned across this world, across this planet, as you said before, to what is the 50% that we want to collectively accept as our truth in this moment, as what we believe in. So that, I think, is also a central theme in the movie Illusion, right? Is around perception. I mean, illusion in itself already alludes to the fact that there is something that needs to shift in our perspective and how we perceive things. How are you bringing this perception, this global consciousness into illusion? Of course, without giving too much away for our listeners, but how does it center around perception, and how does that connect back to, I want to say, almost how we can make this shift now collectively? What does it take to change our perception in these times when we are so wide open?
What I do in the movie, and this is what I was searching for, I search for a common denominator in every single belief. What I do is I bring them all down to one level. Every single belief, whether it's highly spiritual or just how are you going to get to work? I bring it down to one level and I'm like, look, this is where it all comes from. This is all it is. All of it, all the time. And from there, it really gives the opportunity of like, okay, if everything's at the same level, including the things that make me feel good versus the things that make me feel bad, they all come from the same place. Then there's an opportunity there to really understand how I can control that. And I can contribute too. This is another word, contribute. There's a self-healing understanding, and there's also a contribution that you then in turn are existing with your fellow humans, whether you're aware of it or not. And that's also equally as important. And perception and belief, as you were talking about, is part of that understanding. So in the film, I find this common denominator where I like strip everything down to this. And what I like about this understanding is it's scientific, it's grounded, and it literally says you are all right. Now, what do you do? Because a lot of documentaries and a lot of people are talking about, well, this is the way and this is not the way. And these people are trying to stop you. And this is why your life sucks. And okay, well, again, if everyone's right, then yes, there is a piece of that is correct. But there's also a piece of it that you're not seeing that you could also have a different perception of that would be able to change it instead of being in the moment of, well, it's because of this. And that is why the things suck. I'll just use that word.
Yeah, I love that. And it certainly, I feel, will give us a lot of things to think about and consider, maybe with a bit more radical honesty of where our perception is actually at after we watch your movie. Now, with the premiere coming up and people hopefully turning out in droves to watch this, what do you hope that viewers are going to take away from this movie into their own lives? What is one thing that you're really hoping that they might sit down with and think about a little bit and then go, oh, okay, maybe Melissa has a point there. We can consider this, or we can consider that, or I could start with this. What do you hope they take away?
I hope that they can release resistance around other people's belief systems. And if there is a common denominator between all of them, then we don't have to fight for. Here's the thing. A lot of our restrictions, laws, and policies, resistance has to do with the fact of translating the supernatural world. And I want you to think about this for a second. There are laws and policies put into place from every country that maybe don't come from a spiritual place. And some of them do. There's supposed to be a separation between spiritual beliefs and the way the government's run, but that crosses over. But even if you strip that away and you think about why those group of people convinced that country to believe that they needed those laws and policies, is because there was a fear that was invisible and it was in the future. And if they didn't endorse this law or policy, then that really bad thing in the future, the unknown, quote unquote, would happen. So now let's go back to belief systems in our communities. A lot of that is also based on, yes, spiritual beliefs, but there could be a really bad thing that happens if we don't all do this together, or we don't believe in that thing up there, or this is from caveman days to now, right? Out there, over there, that city, they could hurt us, they could happen. So we have to believe in this one thing here. Now, what that is the unknown. This depicts all of our restrictions, laws and policies, and our beliefs, and our resistance to others' beliefs. So what I'm hoping is that people watch this movie and they don't get triggered. They sit, I say everybody's right. And you sit with that for a second and you realize that your resistance to somebody else's stuff also came from the same place that your stuff came from. If you could coexist together, how would that look? And I would love for people to open up that conversation, because if you remove the fear of, well, somebody believes that, so they're going to hurt me, and you remove that, God, what could we create? And at the end of the movie, I don't have the answer for that, right? Because this is a collective that needs to decide this, not Melissa as a filmmaker. But there's something really profound that I wanted to show, because I just didn't want to talk about it. Us humans have been talking about coexisting in a better way for thousands of years. Like, it's sort of nauseating. I thought to myself, what would be an analogy that I could physically create that would show everybody existing all the time and representing themselves and their expression of the supernatural all at once? And I thought, music. I want you to think about this. Across the world, different cultures, civilizations, belief systems have different forms of music. We're all using the 12-tone musical system, but the way that we use it is completely different. You have Asian cultures use that 12-tone system. Sometimes they go outside the 12-tone system and then they come back in. But different cultures use different chords and notes and meters and all of this to express their culture's voice. Again, I don't want to give too much, but you can't hear it on here. But so I thought, okay, this might be a great analogy. So I go to this Harvard composer, really big guy. He actually, do you know who the Chainsmokers are?
No, I don't.
I mean, they're worldwide, but they're like a DJ hybrid band or whatever. Anyway, he works with all these really big artists, including the Chainsmokers. I think he taught them how to play piano or something. Anyway, I go to him and I say, okay, I have this really crazy project. I want to put every single human expression through music in one song. And he's like, you are crazy. That's impossible. It's impossible. It sounds like absolute garbage. Nobody would listen to it. He ignored me for a while. And apparently he had a conversation with the Chainsmokers because he was in a session with them. And he brought it up and they're like, dude, just try it, man. Like, what if it works out? So he called me back and he's like, okay, I will give this a try. And he not only gave it a try, but he created a beautiful song of every single human voice, civilization, culture, its expression through music in one song. And I cannot wait for everybody to hear it.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That's going to be amazing to actually experience that and hear that. And you know what strikes me really after you sharing this is that division kind of thrives in this fear that we experience, the fear of this unknown, right? It really does a lot to divide us as humans and say, okay, well, these people are different from us because of this, or them over there, right? How you mentioned that it kind of creates these divisions all over. what it sounds like to me through this movie is maybe we can access this shared humanity together, this shared look at all of these musical expressions. We are all in this as one, right? Can maybe access that through this movie and remember a little bit what it feels like to coexist together and coexist in a way that actually helps us thrive, changes our perceptions. So I am so much more curious now than I was at the beginning of the episode. So share a little bit with us on when the premiere is coming up, how people can watch, how they can sign up, how can they join, what's coming up for the movie.
Woo! All right. One thing that I like to do before I start to sell it to networks is I like to offer a community launch. I think it's important for people that are really interested in this to get together and watch a movie. So I've got a free movie watch weekend, July 24th through the 26th, 48 hours. It's free. It's worldwide. There are no borders on this. We will have it on our platform, hathorstudios.com. You just sign up. I want to be part of the free watch weekend, and we send you a link and you get to watch it. And the really cool thing is after we premiere this, we have, I hope you guys love the movie, but we have a whole set of people in the movie, like researchers, Greg Braden, Dr. Sue Morter, Matthias, a lot of people that are in the movie, and a lot of scientists that are going to teach pieces of what's in this movie so you can really figure out your expression throughout as you watch the movie. Okay, so the movie's done. What do you do with that information? I want to make sure that you have the tools to actually move on. So we have the movie July 24th through the 26th. And then in September, we start these courses. And we also are launching community events. So I'm not quite sure when we'll do some overseas, but right now we're setting up a bunch in North America where they're community events. We'll have a speaker, we'll have a dinner, just people getting together and really building that community aspect in person. So we're going to have things that are online and in person so that we can continue kind of exploring this mutual expression and all of our expressions differently together, all at once, all the time, equally.
Yeah, sounds amazing. I love the combination of the online in person, kind of gives access to everyone. And of course, you know what I'll be doing that weekend. So I'll be joining you online. And I hope all of our listeners are there too, part of the watch party. And we'll, of course, put all of these links into the show notes as well so everyone knows where to head to look all that up. And I look forward to the teaching that starts in September as well. I feel a lot of the times when there's a big project, we're all part of that. The community gets really excited. Then the event is over and there's a bit of that hole that you fall into. Well, what do I do with all of this now? Where do I go from here? So I love that that continues, goes into the teachings after, and gives the community a nice direction to move forward to together. So that sounds fantastic. Thank you, Melissa, for joining me today and being part of this episode. I'm absolutely excited that you are bringing out another movie and I can't wait to see it. And thank you for sharing some of your own story, the background that goes into making this, some of the thoughts and questions that you were wrangling with as you were bringing all this together. And thanks for spending this time with me today.
Amazing. And thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. I think it's important to support each other. And when I'm out there making films by myself, I'm like, oh, it's so nice to have support. So thank you so much for this time.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. And thanks everyone for tuning in and hope you join us on the watch party and coming up in July. Check the show notes for that. We'll make sure we'll link you to all the important information. And thanks, Melissa, for being here today. Thanks for this amazing work that you do. And stay tuned, everyone, for the movie coming out, Illusion, in July. And until then, take care of yourselves and be well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.